Goodness. All right. I am so sorry. Now let me tell you, hot mess today. This is what happens when it's live, okay? I was
Right?
like, how many times are you going to play? Hello, everybody. Listen, I have to love coming from live television and being able to make fun of myself for the things that I can't control that I thought I was controlling from live television. Renee Bauer, wait, welcome into the Well Dressed Brand TV show. Thank you so much for your patience with me today.
This is getting the best part of the week. Like, what better way to spend a Friday than to hang out with you?
You are amazing. So that just completely threw me off a little bit because I'm like, I hit all of the wrong buttons, but my tribe knows that I am such a truth teller, and I'm going to let y'all know what's going on. I've the Hot Mess Friday, but I'm excited because we get to talk about she who wins today with the exceptional Renee Bauer. Am I saying your last name correctly?
You are.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you are an attorney, a speaker, an author of several books, a podcaster, entrepreneur. I mean, is there anything that you cannot do? And also a mom. You're wearing all the hats and you're doing all the things. Now, word on the street, Renee, is that you've spent a lot of your adulthood, you kind of found yourself lost in these things that like you should have been doing, this tug of war inside of you with this good girl pulling you in one direction versus the disruptor in you pulling you in the other direction. There's a bunch of things that happen: shame set in, worthlessness, doubt, check, check, check. I can relate to all of those things. And then you got it all to settle somehow. Can you tell us about that time in your life? Tell us what your definition of a good girl is.
I think it's an ever evolving journey. I can't say that like I've come out of it and I'm like it just magically I am no longer that thing because I think it's the condition. Listen, I'm 46. The conditioning runs deep and it runs long.
Whew, that part.
And it is, you spend your life trying to keep the peace and
Yeah.
trying to do things expected of you and trying to be the good daughter and the good wife and the good mother and the good boss, like all of that stuff. You want to show up and have people approve of you. And that conditioning runs so deep of like,
Mm.
make sure you're smiling, make sure you're not, rocking the boat, and it took, quite frankly, 2 divorces to kind of shake me out of that. And
Mm.
beyond that, like it took getting knocked down to my knees to say, wait a second, something is not working. I'm spending my
Yeah.
life trying to keep everyone else happy. I'm not paying attention to what's happening inside of me, to that voice and that intuition who knows way better than anyone else,
Yeah.
any well-intentioned loved ones and friends. Like I already know, but that's going to require me to have really hard conversations. It's
Yeah.
going to require me to take massive leaps in risk, and it's going to be scary and I'm afraid and I'm going to do it anyway. And like once you start flexing that muscle, it becomes so much easier. And it's like the next one is like, all right, well, this is a big one too, but I made it past that first hurdle. I can make it past this one too. And like so on, it continues. And that's why I feel like
Yeah.
it's a constant exercise, because each hurdle and each risk just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, all right, I'm going to tackle that because that last one, didn't take me out. And
Yeah.
so I think that so many women, especially as a divorce lawyer, when women come to see me, it was a common theme that they had, that they were coming to me at a point when it was almost too late. And it was like, what,
Mm.
imagine what happened in your life and in your relationship had you had that uncomfortable conversation years ago. Had you said, I'm going to take time to go after my dreams, and now I won't, not resentful because of it. Had you like really taken the time to nurture yourself, they may not get to the point where they're walking into a divorce lawyer's office because
Yeah.
they were able to tackle those things. And I know for me, like, divorce number 1, I own my stuff on that. I shoved so much stuff under the rug that by the time like I saw it, what it was, like we couldn't come back from it. And
Yeah.
like, and that's on me. And it was like, it made me realize, like, I'm not going to do that again. And, my current relationship, I will not allow that to happen. And that means I'm going to have hard conversations every once in a while.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think that I'm still surprised. And I guess I shouldn't be, but I'm still learning that I am always surprised how difficult it is for people to have difficult conversations. And it's not about the uncomfortableness for me, because I just believe that anything can be talked about or said, is all in the way that you handle it. And then
Yeah.
just being transparent and saying, I don't know what to say, or I'm not quite sure how to handle this, but just kind of being able to create that environment. And so I know that worked for me. You said about you being 46. Do you think that a lot of this, when you look back, I attribute some of this to this, but what is your opinion on it? Like, do you think that some of it is just wisdom, right? Because you get older. I know I woke up on my 45th birthday and I was like, okay, I'm grown. Like, I remember Renee calling Leah, our friend Leah, shout out to Leah Valencia Key. I remember calling Leah on my 45th birthday, and I was like, girl, um, I'm a grown ass woman. Like, no one's coming to save me.
Oh my God.
Right? I was like, no one's coming to save me. Like, I have to own this stuff. I have to own whatever is happening and whatever happens, from this point on. And this year I turned 50, and I'm still like, and then this year I was like, okay, I'm grown. Like, at this point, my parents are, one set of parents are gone. Like, I can't go back home to mom. There's no one, like, I'm grown. You know what I mean? And so, and to your point about what you were saying, it's just like, then you still have to still own the things that you are becoming and growing through in that season. So do you think some of it is wisdom, or just, we just need to have these tools?
I think it's a combination. I think some of it is wisdom. And I think, like, I look at the younger generation, and I think especially younger women are much more in tune to who they are and their individuality, and kind of pushing against societal norms. I think that they do a better job than we ever did, because we weren't, like, we didn't have, thank God we didn't have social media back then, but also we didn't also have some of the things and inspiration around us. So we were watching other people say these things, and
Yeah.
that was, and social media is not all bad, because there is inspiration, and you can see other people, and really see yourself in someone else. So, and I think that, and some of the feedback I actually got from my book were from younger readers, and it was like, for them, it was, it hit differently than someone who's our age who might read it. And so
Yeah.
maybe there's, I hope that there's, like, the tools and the tidbits that they take to really know their worth,
Love
and
it.
not compromise that, and not, I mean, listen, we all end up in a relationship at some point in our lives, because that's not a good one. Like, it just happens. It's part of
Oh,
growing up.
yeah.
But
Oh,
maybe
honey.
they don't have to stay in it and linger in it as
Yeah.
long as we did, because they're more comfortable in their worth and using their voice. And so I think it's, yes, I think you get to a decade where you're like, listen, I don't need extra friends. If you
Right.
don't like me, so be it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's
that's
true.
the benefit of where we are in our stage in our life. But then you also, I think that, some of the lessons I learned, I wish I had learned them sooner, and I would
Yeah.
have no regrets, but I would have made different choices. And I think those are things, that the younger generations can start practicing and implementing sooner.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Sidebar, I'm loving you in the green. Thank you for supporting the color of the month. I love it. It looks gorgeous on you. I want to take I want to jump into chapter 1, where you're talking about stop and disrupt. And you say on page 19, getting uncomfortable with disrupting the current state of things in where is where our work begins. You must disrupt the thought that are shaped by societal norms, generational influences, and your own self-limiting beliefs, so that you can start to step into the authentic, soulful, joyful, amazing existence until you become intentional about changing the story that is stuck on repeat. Amen. You will continue to do things the way that you are that they are supposed to be done. Can we unpack some of these thoughts that were shaped by societal norms?
Yeah.
What let's talk about some of those things. Can you name a few? Like, I think I have a few in my head, but when you were writing this, what was running through your mind about the things that we kind of all going through from generation to generation, really?
I think that what's the one of us having to be, for us having to be moms, like that's one. And I am a mom. I have friends who chose not to have kids and who constantly have someone say something to them about their choice about not having kids as and so like that's a big one. Like, why do we have this if you're not, and someone said something. I just met a woman the other day who was sharing this story of how it was thrown in her face that
Mm,
she wasn't a child, so she couldn't get something. And I'm like, that's heartbreaking, because like that's a societal norm, right? It's like, oh, if you're a woman, you're going to follow the path, you're going to get married and then have kids, and that's that, and there aren't any other choices. Like, that's one. Getting married, like
yeah,
this, in my 20s, it was, we were all my friends were getting married at the same time within the same 3 years. No one was opting out of that. We're all like, okay, we're dating someone, we're getting married, that's it, and we're doing that. And it's like, now it's like you can opt out of that. You can wait. You can decide not to get married. You can decide just to live with your life partner. Like, there's
yeah,
so many choices around that, rather than just following this path. Like, you graduate, you get engaged, you get married, you have a couple babies, and you go on vacation twice a year.
yeah.
So those are the two big ones.
Yeah, I love that. And I was thinking too when I was reading this about the holidays coming up, and then how many, single ladies are going to be sitting around that darn dining room table and having to, answer these questions, and not and feel like it's not okay that they either haven't found a quality partner yet, or maybe to your point, like they're choosing, like, this is just not what I want to do. I may not want to have, kids. I may not want to have, all the things. And, I definitely thought about that. And then you were talking about generational influences. You know, I think that sometimes, depending on your parents and how old they are, um, their story can sometimes get placed on you. Well, I
Yeah.
did this and you should do that. Even like, why would you, even around entrepreneurship, right? Like, why would you leave that good paying job and go and start
Yes.
this business over here? And so I thought about all of these things. And so you're encouraging us to kind of stop, and stop the thoughts and disruption around that. What's a tool that we could use to kind of stop and disrupt those thoughts as we start to let that doubt, creep in, I guess, of like, maybe I should be getting married, and maybe it's not okay that I don't want to have kids.
I so the first tool that's part of this book is part of a framework that I teach, and the first part of it is I call it stop and assess. The whole framework is stop, drop, and roll equals win. But the first piece of it is to stop and assess, and this is the conversation that your head has with your heart. Like, there is an 18, I think it's 18 inches from your heart to your head, and there, in terms of decision making, like, it could be a world apart from each other, because I
Mm,
think happens anytime we're faced with having to make a decision and trying to decide what path we want. Our head starts to really yell and like wave the flags, right? And our head's like, play it safe, be practical, pick the steady job, pick the one that has the benefits, like do all of the things that our head is telling us. And then we're crowdsourcing, we're asking friends and family, and they're giving
yeah,
their opinions. And really, that's the worst thing you can do. And instead, pay attention to what's happening inside of you. So whether you call it your intuition, your gut instinct, that, maybe a red flag, depending on what it is, but whatever, like that from the inside out, that
yeah.
thing that's nagging at you, that little thought that you keep like flicking off your shoulder to be like, well, I don't know why I'm thinking this. Like, that's the one that you have to pay attention to, and getting
Mm,
quiet about what it is that you want. And that's what you go for. And you tell your head to like knock it off. and it doesn't have a place in that decision making process, and trust it, it's going to be scary, and that's it's going to be uncertain, like it's going to be hard. But if it keeps
Yeah.
coming up for you, and if it's the thing that's like, one day I'll do this, one day I
Yeah.
want to do this, my dream is this, if only I could do this, why, what are we waiting for? Like,
Yeah.
why are we putting our life and dreams on hold, and not going for it now because we're scared? And that's usually what it is. So it's really, especially as women, like, we're so intuitive, like we pay
Yes.
attention to that. We know so deeply what it is we want, and sometimes we're afraid to take that leap.
Yeah, I love that because I think that I know for sure everything that you're saying is correct. I've lived through some of those things. But this is what it made me think of, and this is not where I was intending to go, but it made me think about this. And so because I'm looking at like where I'm supposed to be going, but I wanted to share this and get your thoughts because we recently moved into our home. We've been here in this house a year. And I when we moved into this neighborhood, it's a beautiful neighborhood, and it's a lovely, everyone's exceptional. So we were having like this neighborhood gathering, and I was talking to some of the women who are significantly older than I am. So I'm talking about 20, I would say 15 plus years older, right? So we just start talking about, like, well, I own I have a personal branding and image consulting agency, and I've written a book, and I've had a TEDx, and I've had these features, and blah, 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 right? And I'll never forget, it was two of them, but one particular said to me, "How did you know to do that? How did you know that you could?" And she said, "Because in my time," she said, "I like my husband was in the military, and we moved around, and I always wanted to go to fashion school. Did you go to fashion school?" I said, "I did." She said, "I always wanted to go to fashion school, but I decided to stay home with the kids." And again, he was in the military, so they moved around a lot, and the kids are gone. And, now she still has, to your point where you were talking about that, like, ache in her heart that she never got to do that. And it wasn't regret at this point because she did a beautiful job. Like, her children are great and everything's good. But my heart broke for her because she's was looking at me saying, like, like, how did you know? And I said to her, "No one ever told me that I couldn't." You know what I mean? And I don't mean that. That sounds very heroic. It's not. I don't mean like I just was out there like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this." Like, unfortunately, that's not what it is. It's just that with the home that I was in, I just didn't have that high a level of, expectation, if I'm being completely transparent. My mom was very much like, "Listen, do not get pregnant and graduate high school." Like, in her eyes, if I could accomplish those two things, then I'm winning. Praise God that I'm just intrinsically motivated. And
Yeah.
so we moved into an area where I did have very affluent friends, and I wasn't seeing, outside of television until I went to this school and acquired this certain friends in high school. I wasn't seeing affluent Black people who had two parents in the home driving Beamers to school. Like, that was like a new to me to see. And though they represented a different portion of my life, like, "You're going to college, right? You should be this. You should be I'm like, what are all these things? So they opened up a whole new world. Anyway, I said all that to say, I love what you were saying about that, um about just being able to stop and assess, because I could see it in her life. I can see it in our generation. And then what you were saying about the younger generation. Before I move past stop, I just wanted to name a couple more things that you list out. Stop. You don't need to lose weight. You don't need to earn extra money. You don't need to get a fashionable closet. You don't need to
You might have, you're like, wait a second, I disagree.
It's like, well, now, Renee. No, I agree with that because, at the Well Dressed brand, we talk about you. I want you to be relevant. It's not so much about fashion, right? And you want to dress the way that you want to be addressed, right? So you're asking, going exactly to your point, Renee. It's like, what is it that you want the world to see, feel, do with you as a brand? And so you're right. It's not about the things. And that's what I talk about. It's about how it makes you feel. If you get up that day and you're like, I need to feel powerful, that has nothing to do with having fashionable items in your closet. If you're saying, I'm going into this meeting and I need to persuade them that I'm about growth and harmony because I'm opening up a spa. That's when you put your green blazer on and you're like, we're talking about growth. We're talking about making you better as a human, and so that's when the psychology of color and all those things come in. So I agree with you 100% on that. Um, and oh, here, this is where you shut me down. Oh, here we go. Who you sleep next to each
Yeah.
night. Can we talk about that for a second? Especially as a divorce lawyer, like what are some of the thoughts around like getting married, marriage, the partner you choose, the partner you didn't choose that we really need to stop?
So this is, my own personal story. I'm married 3 times, divorced twice. And my second marriage was the person who did not support my entrepreneurship journey or my
Mm,
vision
yeah.
or, and in that very short period of my life, I stopped creating.
Mm,
I turned inward. I was like a broken version of myself.
yeah.
So, because the energy of that person shut me down in the sense where I was like, it's going to be easier just to conform. It's going to be easier to go quiet. It's going to be easier not to expand
Yeah.
than face the piper, right? With this person. And on the other side, I'm married to the partner who all of the heartache, it was worth it to get to the relationship I'm in because this is the person who says, all right, babe, you're crazy, but let's do this.
Right.
But having that support really changes how you show up in the world and it changes your
100%.
dreams and how big you can dream. And if you have
Yes.
someone who let go for it. If it fills you up, why not go for it? Then you feel empowered to do that. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they're going to see you know what? Okay, if it didn't work, so what? We're still together. Like all life is good. We have a good life and like onward we go. And,
Yeah.
so when you put who you put yourself with, who you're sleeping with, who you come home to every night matters in your own growth and what you do. And especially as an entrepreneur, I think we cut our dreams down when we're
Yeah.
with someone taking the energy from us because all of our energy is being put into trying to keep that piece of that relationship or
Yeah.
just dealing with that toxic relationship.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that you said that because I think that people don't realize that it's so impacts your personal brand. It so impacts how you now can and
Yeah.
will and move through the world. And all I keep thinking about is I was talking to my therapist the other day and we were talking about shame and she was saying what physically happens to you, Renee, when you go through that situation and you start to feel shame because shame is like I'm bad, as opposed to the situation's bad. And even hearing you say how you were shrinking down and she talked about how your body starts to curl into this C shape.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind because we just don't even realize how sometimes these things are completely shutting us down, drawing us out. And this is just not who God created us to be. Like, it just absolutely not. So, we're going to move right into drop. Talk to
Yeah.
us about that, dropping these excuses. You're saying your excuses are the reasons why you are stuck. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite one because we all have our own unique brand of BS that shows up over and over again. I mean, if we hold the mirror up to who we are, it's the same ones that come up for us. And it sounds, for some people, it sounds like I'll do it when I lose 10 pounds. I'll
Ugh,
do it when I save more money. I'll do it when the kids are older. Oh my God, how many times I heard that. I
yeah.
will leave this horrible, unhappy marriage when the kids are older. And now you're going to wait another 10 years for your life to begin. It's such a sad one. I'll do it when I have when I have more time to devote to taking care of myself. Like, it's all of these things that we hear. I mean, you can, I see it in my own friends of like, hey, let's get together. And they're like, well, I'll do it when soccer season's over. It's like, it's
Yeah.
those things that show up. And that is the thing that is going to single handedly prevent you from
Mm,
moving because you could know, like, this is what I want. Maybe like that phase one, you got it down. You're like, yes, this is what I need and this is what I want. But we're stuck at that excuse that will
Yeah.
stop us. And until you get past that, until we can acknowledge that excuse and say, all right, I see you. I know what you're doing here. I know, like, you've shown up for me. And that's, and that goes back to how we started the conversation with, like, having this growing and where you are in seasons of life and working through it. Like, it's ever evolving. Like, I have the same things that come up for me over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But I acknowledge it now and I can see it. Like,
Yeah.
now I'll be like, oh, there you are. I haven't seen her in a little while.
Yeah.
You know, and like you can put her in her place. And
Yeah.
so becoming so aware of what it is and not allowing that to dictate what your next move is, or allowing that to put your dreams on hold, or starting the business, or going forward, or leaving the business that is just sucking your soul. Like, you have the ability to do that, but if we get hung up at that place where we're constantly saying another time, another day,
Yeah.
another moment, another season, we're never going to move past that.
Yeah, and that sounds like the story that I was just telling you about my neighbor. That, yeah, at some
Yeah.
point, that's exactly what happened. And I think that too, once you decide that this is the vision, that you set the vision, right? Then
Yeah.
you have to look within your community and within yourself, of course, to start to ask for help, right? And so if you are like, I have small children, but I want to write a book, then maybe there's a friend that you can partner with,
Yeah.
and they can take the kid on a play date while for 1 hour while you just focus on writing, every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, or whatever it is. And if it's losing weight, like, then maybe it's a friend group that you guys can make meals for each other, because the prepping is the hardest part. And so, like, let's all, I'll do meals for the three of us on these days, and you do, everything, Marie Forleo, right? It's like everything is figure outable. There's a way for you to really make it happen, and you're not really as alone as you think that you are. So I love that you talk about that. It's dropping the fear, dropping the guilt. um I'm just looking to see, I was going to say something else. This is the question. Yeah, how can we, all right, I want to go back. Sorry. So my question was, how do we drop the excuses and then become unstoppable? But what about the squashing of the people pleasing? Can we talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I can think back to something that happened today about people pleasing, and I can think of, like, what I was trying to do. I was just simply canceling a membership. Very simple, right? But I had a personal connection to the person whose business it was. And so I felt really bad. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it was like, but it was this moment where I hesitated. I'm like, wait a second, what am I worried about? It's like, it's my money, it's my, like, I get to make these choices. And
Yeah.
it's that, like, I don't want this person to think ill of me, or I
Yeah.
don't want, that's like the people pleasing. It's like, I want people to think that, whatever perception I want them to feel and think. And it's like, so then you start to making actions, you start doing things in order to please those people. You start saying yes to things when you really mean no,
Yeah.
or you say no when you mean yes. And it's like, because you're worried about other people. And I've always said to divorce clients, like, you don't have to show up for every fight you're invited to. You don't have to, like, you get to determine what it is that you want, and how someone else perceives that or responds to it, that's their problem.
Yeah.
And if you set a boundary and you said, you know what, I'm saying no, and they give you pushback, that's their problem. It
It
has nothing to
is.
do with you.
Nothing.
And I think it's really hard for us to let go of that, because we think, well, what did I do wrong? And now they're mad at me. Now they're going to think ill of me. Who
Ugh.
cares? That's
Yeah.
on them. Like,
Yeah.
that's so much energy to give to somebody else. But it's so hard to do that, because I think, especially as women, we're empathetic. We're worried about how people feel. And we
Yeah.
want to not hurt feelings. And there's a place for that. But I think sometimes when that becomes more important than the thing that we actually want, then it's a problem. So it's really getting clear on I'm going to speak my truth and say something in a respectful way and say, or say no to something or do something,
Mhm.
even, because it's true to what I want, even if it's going to rock the boat or upset somebody else on the other side. And,
Yeah.
that is a constant practice of getting uncomfortable, because I don't know anyone who's comfortable just being like, who just says, hey, whatever, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. Like it's practice to drop that
Yeah.
people please way.
Yeah, and it's because we everybody cares what somebody thinks. You may not
Yeah.
care what everybody thinks. You can sit there and say like, "I don't people please. I don't da 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 da," but it depends on that person. And I always would like, I'm the queen of no. When my mom was alive, it was just like, but I definitely cared what she think. Like my best friend could come over, and I'm like, "Don't look at my closet; it's a mess." But if my mother was coming over, the way I was mopping those floors. And dusting those cabinets
Yeah.
because I was just like, oh, I just don't want to. It was like all the stuff from childhood flashing back, right? Like, And I remember one day I was having a day and I was like, I had a toddler and we had like a little dog, and everybody had just like pooped everywhere. Like, pooped through the clothes, dog pooped on the floor because I have like a new mom and I hadn't let the dog out. And my mom came over and my house was like not as clean as it usually is. And she was like, "Your kitchen floor is a mess." And I'll never forget this, Renee. I looked at her. I was like, "Feel free to go and mop it." I said, "Feel
Yeah.
free to go and mop it." And next thing I know, she was in there cleaning my kitchen. I was like, "Amen. I'm going to go take care of this child."
That's hysterical. It's But I think, you know what? I think it's the hardest conversations, and those are with the people who we love the most, the people closest to us. Because we care about, it's easy to not care about what a stranger thinks, but it's really hard when it's someone that who you love and someone you
Yeah.
respect care about that. And that's, I think that's where the magic is, where you can then turn to them and say, I love you, and I still feel this way, and it's
Yes.
still and it's a
Mm.
boundary that I'm not willing to blur.
I love
It's hard.
that. I love that, Renee. That's my favorite thing is the yes and. That is like,
Yeah.
yes and is my favorite. Let's talk about rolling into action. Oh, can
Yeah.
we talk about rejection? Ouch.
I
Whoo.
favorite word. What's funny is, so like my ultimate story of rejection has to do with this book where I've been a writer my whole life, and I thought like, okay, I'm gonna get a traditional book deal. In order to do that, if you don't know, you get a literary agent first, and then they pitch it to publishers. So I started on that journey. I'm like, all right, here we go. Well, 113 no's later from
Oh,
literary agents, 113 no's. And I am so tenacious and so like stubborn. I'm like, all right, one more. Like, that's just one more person who's not meant to have this, until I got the yes. And then I get the agent. I'm like, all right, here we are. I have an agent. We're going to get a book deal. And next week, I'm going to have my, writing lake house in 3 months. This is magical. And the only thing that changed was the no's went to her first from the publisher before they came to me. And I'm like, well, this didn't change anything. But it was like, that reject, every time one came in, I was like, okay, that just means it's not with the person or the publisher who it's supposed to be with. That means it's getting redirected to the person who's meant to champion this. And you take that as sometimes, like, I think, I'm a high achiever, like I'm sure all your listeners are. It's like, you want to control the narrative. You
yeah,
want things to come the way you want
of
it to,
course.
like, right? Like, that's what we do. But when we change that and we say, okay, I wanted that, I thought, but maybe the universe knows better than myself as to what's best for me. And
Yeah,
so it's having peace with that and having like this faith that the journey that's unraveling, the rejections that are coming in, have a higher purpose. And it's
yeah,
going to unfold exactly the way it's supposed to. But I also say, like, I love manifestation.
yeah,
I am a practitioner. However, you can't just wish something and hope for it to be.
yeah,
Like, this is where roll into action comes in. Like, you have to take action. There has to be a strategy behind it. And it doesn't have to be a massive leap. It can just be like the next thing to move you forward. And what
yeah,
happens when we do that, when we roll it, then you create momentum. and that
I
thing
love
turns
that.
into something else, and you sort of build up that momentum to keep things moving forward. Because no matter the timeline, no matter the outcome, as long as you're doing those little rolls at a time, you're moving away from your excuses, moving away from your place of stagnation, and you're going to end up winning because you are no longer stuck and you're one step closer to whatever it is you're meant to do and be, whatever journey you're meant to be on. Because there really is never an end, right? Because we keep moving
Yeah.
the needle. But it's like that's the journey. And as long as we keep moving one step at a time.
I love that. And I think that that's what happens when you were talking about, a step back of just like the excuses are getting you stuck. And so if you then again roll into action, regardless of its rejection, when the shame sets in, when the fear sets in, if you can just keep moving forward,
Yeah.
the smallest of steps or the large, like whatever is within your comfort zone, right? Like sometimes it's just sending an email, sometimes it's just a phone call, sometimes it's just like, what is the next best thing, that I can do right now, just to
Right.
feel like, you're moving forward. I love that. I don't want to take up too much of our time, but I have to tell you my rejection story because you shared yours,
Mm.
and we were talking about this before the show. And so I was talking to someone who was starting an agency, and they were just like, "We want to bring you in, and then I'm going to get you this publishing deal and this, that, and the third." And I was just like, "Yeah, I don't know. I think that I'm going to self publish." And and I was working on I'm working on my second book, and so this is what they said to me: why would you do that, right? Going back to the top of the conversation, that whole thing about this is how it should be.
Yeah.
And I said, and I explained when I hated the feeling of having to explain my point of view. That's like the woman thing, right? I had to explain, well, I just really da 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 da. And this person said to me, you are unconsciously incompetent. It's yeah.
Were they trying to get you to like change your mind about something? Like, was that the words that were going to
Right.
do it?
Those apparently were the words that were supposed to make me want to become a part of this agency. And, they went on to say, when people self publish books, they look like little pamphlets, and I never have those people on my podcast, and da 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 da. And so, I'm so grateful for who I am and the woman that I'm becoming still and who I've grown to be so far, because I do trust myself. And I rely on my faith when I can't trust myself, not my feelings, but I trust the intuition that we were talking about earlier. And I felt very confident that I could create something that was beautiful. And so, as for those of you out there who have published books, that as you're going through this process, it can be expensive to add color. It could be expensive to do like every little thing. It starts to add up. And sometimes the publisher doesn't want to pay for those things. And so my vision, like I'm a creative, like my vision is so clear. And so I'm very proud of what we were able to create, because there is color running all through the book, and there's is da 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 da, and I don't look at the product, the same as yours. It's so beautiful. I love, 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 love and so there's no compromising, because you had a vision, you made it plain, you didn't make excuses for it. You were just like, I'm gonna die. I don't know about you, but for me, I was like, I'm gonna die on this hill, and I'm gonna create something that I'm proud of, that's going to help people. And that's what you did. So I love that about the rolling into rejection and being able to squash the things that go through that. All right, let's move on to winning. Win, 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 win. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I read your book, I texted you last night and I was like, Renee, all I can think about is the Barbie movie and America playing the character Gloria and her full monologue. And so as we are talking through these 4 steps, right? I just want to give a little bit of the monologue, and I want you to talk to us as if we're Gloria, because I think we all can relate to this monologue, and tell us how we're going to win at life. All right. So for those of you who have not seen the Barbie movie, I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can. So she said, it's literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and you're so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. I am talking to you. She's talking to us. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but you can't be too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy. But also, you have to be thin. You have to make money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids too much. You have to have a career. You have to be a career woman, but also be looking out for other people. You have to answer answer to men's bad behavior, which is insane. But if you point it out, then you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much. That you're threatened by other women. And she just goes on and on to say that you got to be grateful. Um, and always be acknowledging things. You can't get old. You can't be rude. You can't be a show off. You can't be selfish. You can't fail. You don't show fear, like all of these things, and how difficult it is. So when we consider all of those things, of course it feels impossible to win. So tell us what to do.
That's the best scene in the whole movie. What to do? It's what not to do.
Tell us
It's
what not to do.
what not to do is not compare yourself,
Yeah.
not have expectations. I think expectations set ourselves up for failure. We expect if we start the diet or go to the gym, we're going to look a certain way, rather than it's like, how are we going to feel? But no, we're expecting to look like some photoshopped, Instagram influencer. And it's like the expectation of what our life is supposed to look like the expectation of what we're supposed to look like, the expectation of like, and I think that that's a huge piece of it. So we talked about our ages, and a few months ago I was like, I have these lines in my face, like right here, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to a doctor and see what we can do about them. And I went in the doctor's office, and it was sitting there, and she's like, well, we can do a bunch of here, and then we can plump up your cheeks here, and then we can do this. And I had this pit in my stomach of total disgust.
Mm.
And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
I'm like, why am I here? I'm like, because of the expectation of you're not going to age. Don't show your age.
Yeah.
Don't show up with grays, like all of the things. And I left and never went back. And it was like, I had to let go. And there's nothing wrong with people, I don't judge at all, but it was like that I was there because of an expectation I was trying to
Yeah.
fulfill. And did I really want to do that? If I wanted to, I would have. I'm like, no, I really don't. But
Yeah.
it was, so it's letting go of and being brave and bold enough to let
Yeah.
go of expectations and using your voice. And it's so hard. It is
Yeah.
so hard to do that. Like, it's easier to talk about it, but I think it's surrounding yourself with the right people and surrounding yourself with supportive women who are with you. And it's maybe turning off social media, and if you don't feel good about it, or taking a
Yeah.
break. It's allowing yourself to say no to the bake sale,
Mm.
or feel like you have to, be the parent doing all the things, and like your kid's going to be fine. Your kid's going to be fine if you miss a game. They may need to go to therapy for other things, but it won't be that. It won't be because you went out with your girlfriends. Like, you know, it's and it's just women supporting women. Like, let's stop judging each other for choices that we're making. And I'm so fortunate because I feel like I'm surrounded by so many incredible, beautifully uplifting women in my life.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case, and not always what I hear from other women. And so it's like, let's help each other and not judge each other. We're all just trying to do this together.
Yeah, we're all just doing our best. And I think that if you're not at a point in your life where you have that, then,
Yeah.
I think about 25 is when you start evaluating, like, I should probably let some of these people go.
Yeah.
But I love that. Everything that you said was just spot on. I loved it. Renee, you're amazing. You're my new best friend.
Yellow heart.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for sharing She Who Wins today. Ditch your inner good girl, overcome uncertainty, and win at your life. So I have the Amazon link in the show notes for you guys. Make sure that you pick this up today. It's a great book to read with your girlfriends. It's a great gift to give to your bestie. Like, hey, I think that you might appreciate this. Check it out. Give it to her with her favorite Starbucks or cup of tea and a cute
Mm.
little blanket because winter's coming. At least in upstate New York, it is.
Same.
Right?
Connecticut. Same.
In Connecticut. Right. We're like, you're not that far. All right. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. You don't have to hang up unless you have it hard out, but thank you so much for. Oh, my camera went right out. Thank you. Oh, gosh. I'm telling you, this show is a mess today. Thank
That's
you.
all right. It's perfectly Friday. It's
I'm like,
perfect.
what in the world? Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Like, I can see myself, but no one else can. See, there we go. This is a great way to kick off Friday. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. We will see you next Friday, which will be a solo show. All right. We'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.